Hey, welcome. This is Dr. John Bush for the Process Week 6 matchup report. The static figures will be in my fake pigskin article, but as always, I try to record these video lessons so that you can hear me discussing my own data versus you just kind of staring and looking and thinking, well, I wonder what he's thinking here. So at least I can clarify my metrics. I've been doing this for many years. I'm just now putting it up and making a video lesson so you can actually hear some of the high points. I cannot give you all the details because frankly I'm still, we're still waiting for injuries and things. Anything can happen between now Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon, so things are going to shift, move, and you've got to be flexible and get ready to move it. I'm constantly tweaking lineups and thinking and looking. I still have some ad drops and things that I will be doing later tonight and into tomorrow. And so, it really never ends until the whistle blows and the game starts. So you've always got to be on top of this. It's hard to set and forget anything in fantasy here. So everything's potentially can move quickly. So just be aware. And with that kind of warning and whatnot, I will take you through some of the things I'm thinking about for this week. So the first thing is I try to use Vegas metrics and see what games they are predicting as high scoring, pretty much 49-50 over under point scoring. So theoretically, obviously, I guess not theoretically, but obviously higher the scores, the more likely there's fantasy football point goodness there. Low defensive games will tend to feature not as much fantasy points. So with a tie situation, you can use high scoring versus low scoring as a way to break those ties in your lineups and decisions for week 6. So here is the platform. This is the figures I use, and there's 2 strips of data. The first segment up at the top has the game number. That's just something that's for me here, so don't worry about the number. I'll give you the favorite score, the underdog score, the Vegas spread. I'm not, it probably is not the latest, and it won't be in the over and under. And again, those I'll probably set this earlier in the week, but I'm sure it's not going to be dramatic here. And then the point scoring level, which in this case I've sorted it for you. This is high. So we're talking Kansas City 34, Washington 21. The spread is about a touchdown difference. So on paper, this looks like Kansas City should finally win here. They've had some struggles, and some of their metrics and things that I've seen so far this year has had me worried about, their playoff aspirations. Things are not 100% clicking there for them. Hopefully this, if you're a Kansas City fan, you're hoping this is a get-right game. If you're Washington, of course, you're hoping for an upset. But pretty much the common view is that Kansas City will beat them by pretty much 2 touchdowns. The second strip is the game number. That's just, again, my number. The team, this is week 6, so it's KC and then Washington, and then KC is playing in Washington, so it's an away game, and Washington's a home game. And then I have some, and if you've seen this before, just pardon me while I go back through it, but if you're new to this, I have a metric called defense against the position. This is looking at the strength of the opponent's defense, and do they give a lot of points or do they not give. So if it is high number, it is a very easy predicted game in that category. And so this is offensive or offense. DAP is the overall defense. And in this case, we're looking at Kansas City against Washington. Washington has 115 offensive DAP score, which is pretty much the worst in the league here. And it's stained green, so green means it's good for Kansas City here. And then I break it, so that's overall, and then I break it into segments. So it's running back, quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, kicker, and defense. So you're probably, for instance, if you have defense, you got to worry about the DAP is 8 and 50. Those are not good. You shouldn't use either one of these defenses. KC's kicker gets a 95 DAP. That's good. Washington's kicker gets a 19. That's not good. So the way you read this is KC should have an easy time of it. They, if you look across, their quarterback Mahomes and the wide receivers, hopefully Tyreek plays, and Hardman, Nicole, and Robinson, whoever else, should do well. Kelsey figures to have a tough game. 29 is tough. 0 would be the toughest. So 29 is not an easy game. It's not the worst, but it's not easy. So the idea, in my setting, Kelsey is good, but has a tough situation. So maybe one score, or he catches a lot. So things like daily fantasy sports, I'm probably not, I'm looking elsewhere for my surprise tight ends there. The running backs, I know there's been a lot of concern about things, and Hilaire is out, so it's Williams, and he gets a 63. Not bad, but it's not, just a cakewalk, but it is above average, so he should be viable here to play. I mean, if you have another ranked running back at, you think is about on the same level as Williams, then you could look at their DAP they're fighting against and use that as a tiebreaker. So the game figures to be good for the wide receivers, good for Mahomes, fairly good for the running back, and Kelsey is going to be struggling a little bit for Kelsey, which may still mean he scores and whatnot, but it's just, if he gets more than if he gets more than a score, like if he gets 2 touchdowns, that would be really good considering that number here. So that's how the game stacks up for Kansas City. So it's probably all players on deck here. Washington faces KC, and notice I've stained the opponent. OPP is their opponent, so Washington's opponent is KC, and it's kind of an olive green. That's fairly easy as well. So KC gives an overall defensive, DAP to the opponent's offense, there's 83. So that's fairly easy too. So part of the reason Vegas and whatnot is giving this a high score is not only are there some really good players on these teams, but both defenses are porous and they're just dealing away points. So this is a point scoring bonanza, I guess you could say. So if you play daily fantasy sports, stacking and these kind of things, probably this is the kind of game you want to jump in on, and I'm sure many will. So Washington gives pretty much the same look to the Kansas City. So the Washington's running back Gibson and McKissick gets a 66, so they should be viable. Heineke gets a 98 DAP. He's good to go. McLaurin, hopefully he's healthy, and Humphreys and Dynami, and they should have an opportunity. And if McLaurin's not out there, then Samuel, if he plays, anybody that's a wide receiver has an opportunity in a 73 DAP. I mean, it's not as great as KC having a 140 DAP to face, but it's not bad. 73 is not bad. And Ricky Seals-Jones gets an average game, so Washington uses. So he's viable for maybe a score. Maybe not, but maybe. Would not use the kicker or the defense from Washington there, given the DAPs. So a point scoring fiesta here. All hands on deck. Play them if you got them. Just looks pretty good for both sides there. Okay. Baltimore, the Chargers. Baltimore figures to beat the Chargers. At least that's what is figured, by about 7 points, so a touchdown. The spread's about 3.5, so I think it's probably Baltimore's game to win. Over-under's 50, 51, so that's good too. So it should be a good scoring bonanza as well. Baltimore faces a tough Chargers. Notice it's a light red, so that's a warning that the Chargers have a fairly tough defense, and their offensive DAP is a 36. So Baltimore is going to have to work for their scores. And the good news is the running game gets a 57. That's good. And the other good situation for Baltimore is Andrews, 58. That's pretty good. Andrews really turned it on last week. It is very possible he turns right around and delivers the goods this week. As far as the passing side, the quarterback DAP is a 24, so that's tough. And Hollywood Brown and the rest of them, they're going to have to really earn against this tough Chargers pass defense. I could see Lamar running some touchdowns in, multiples maybe, and Andrews scoring, as well as a surprise score from the running crew here. I guess Murray, maybe. You don't want to use Baltimore's defense there. You do want to use the Chargers defense. 68's not bad, so you could use that. Chargers face Baltimore. Baltimore gives us 71, so it's above average easy. It's not just super easy. It would be a dark green, but. And notice Eckler. Look at the running back, 90. Eckler could get 2 scores, folks. That is wonderful for him. Herbert and Williams and Allen are going to have to work for their scores, 56 and 39. That just means it's average and a below average, so they're going to have to work. And Jared Cook, or the other tight end, Parham maybe, wouldn't surprise me. Both of them score. It could be 69. It's not bad. I would not use the kicker, but you could use the defenses. So it looks like a tight end running back game, but Williams has really been good, so he could score, and Allen could too. So I still think it's going to be a high scoring game, and I just don't know if the Chargers. I think it might be closer than Vegas thinks here. So, but that's kind of how the landscape appears that Baltimore. And probably some of that is Baltimore's playing at home, and the Chargers, as a West Coast team, are having to come in, to play in the East Coast. So that can be a little wacky as well, the time shift. But that's how this looks. Next game, Cleveland, Arizona, high scoring, 53 over under. Should be a fairly close game. Vegas thinks it's about 2 to 3 points, like a field goal difference. I have it as 29-24. So, Arizona, as far as underdogs, 24 points, they figure is one of the highest underdog points scoring, so they could upset this. If I'm playing one of these eliminator things, I would probably not. I wouldn't play in this game. I would be afraid to use Cleveland, and I would be afraid to use Arizona. Arizona fights into Cleveland, which is an above average tough defense. Overall, it's a 50, so that says to be average, but really, if you look into it, the running backs, so Edmonds and Connor, are going to have a tough row to hoe. I think their production should be down a little bit going against Cleveland at a 24 DAP here. This is what I'm reading, and notice the red score here. On the other hand, Murray, I hope his shoulder's better, but he gets an opportunity here with a 92, and his plethora of wide receivers should get an average game. They don't really have a good tight end now. They got Ertz, so if Ertz was there, I would say he had an opportunity to score, but he's not. I wouldn't use the kicker or the Arizona defense this week. So this looks like it could be, a good Murray game if he's really not injured. And that really concerns me because last year he really kind of lost it after he injured himself and came back. So I have Murray in some leagues, and I am watching and being concerned. The problem with the wide receivers is there's too many. I will say that Rondelle Moore is the fourth on the pecking order that you would have think. Actually had some good metrics that in the snaps and the targeting rate. I think he had the best targeting rate of the all four. And then Hopkins was second. So, if I was playing daily fantasy sports, I could see those two could be viable as there. I would avoid the tight ends. I would lay off the running backs in daily fantasy. But, if I had them, with the bye weeks and injuries, I mean, you'd have to play Connor and Edmonds, but just do so knowing they're going to have a tough road to go here. Cleveland fights one of the toughest defenses, Arizona. That red there means tough. They're at 31 DAP. That's tough. Chubb is out, so it's Hunt, but it's not a cakewalk. Everybody say, oh, Hunt, now he gets lots and lots. Yeah, he get lots of opportunities, but against a tough defense, it's tough. Mayfield gets a 39. He's going to be running around all day, probably getting some sacks. The wide receivers, I think Landry's coming back, so he could surprise. They get an average game there. There's also some kind of unknowns here. Cleveland's been using their tight ends. Let's just say I'm not expecting Njoku to run crazy or Hooper this week. Maybe a score, but going against a 3, I would think they're going to be shut out. Not wanting to use the kicker. Maybe the 60 is maybe the Cleveland defense, given Murray and all, might be good. And I got them at a 60, so that's usable for the defense this week. Another high-scoring game, Dallas and New England. I got it a touchdown difference. Vegas has 4 points. I think Dallas wins. Over-under's 49, but it could go higher. So this could be really an interesting, kind of almost a contrarian game in the sense. Dallas plays away, and that's going to cut their points some. I think that's why Vegas has 49 versus in the 50s, because Dallas, in fact, is playing away. New England can play teams tough. They give a 49 DAPs, a little bit tough. Ezekiel Elliott gets a 65, so he should run and score this week. That's okay. Dak and the wide receivers are going to be under pressure, 36-41. So I'm thinking this is Elliott week here. And Schultz, he's been running well, but let's just say if he's involved a lot and gets multiple scores, I don't know what's going to stop him. He's just that would put him in. We're talking one of the top 5 tight ends in the league if he can do double scores this weekend. I'm not expecting it. Kicker is useful, and Dallas defense is definitely on line here at 84. Go out and get Dallas and their D. New England's going to have a tough road. Dallas will throw them a tough row, even at a 59, but they will shut down their running backs. And Harris has been injured and fumbled, and is Stevenson playing? Bolden, I don't know. Got a lot of mouths to feed there. Jones gets to fight a 40, but the good news is Dallas does like to give a little bit of slack to the wide receivers, so Myers could have a good game. And Henry and Sanu. It's just, again, which one do you use? Henry's been doing okay, so Henry could score. So if I'm doing daily fantasy, he might be somebody I use there. But I think New England's not going to, they're not, 21's probably as good as they're going to score. I just don't see this being that high flying. I think if it is above in the 50s, it's because Dallas is just tearing it up. I would not use the kicker or the D from New England this week. Another high-scoring game, and it should be a freaking festival here, is Buffalo and Tennessee, 29-23, but it could be, 36-35. I mean, it could be the last team with the ball here. And the reason is, and Buffalo should win by at least a touchdown, could be 2 touchdowns. I mean, this game could get out of hand because Tennessee faces an ultra tough thing. But Tennessee is, with Henry, is what's going to keep them in the game. If Tennessee can get Henry and beat the Buffalo D? That's the question. And if, we got the top running back against one of the top defenses against running backs here. So there's the thing that's happening here this game. Buffalo gets an easy cakewalk. Tennessee D, a 90. It's just Tennessee says, here, we're going to just give out touchdown tickets all day, all day. Buffalo, the only thing would worry me if this game got so crazy out of hand that they start pulling their good players. So maybe Tennessee with Henry can keep up, and I hope so. I would love to see it stay within 14 and just keep it rolling, obviously, because I do have a lot of Buffalo players, and certainly I do have Henry as well. So I'm definitely wanting both sides to really go off like rockets. The offensive DAP, Buffalo's a 90. That's just, here, how many touchdowns does Buffalo get? I think they get at least 4 touchdowns, but they could, if they got 6 or 7, it wouldn't surprise me either. The Moss and Singletary get a 66, so both could score. So I know Singletary's been in and out there, but he hasn't completely disappeared. So he still might catch a red zone or a flyer there. So if I had Singletary in bye weeks, he could be a flex option. Okay, because the Tennessee is so crappy on their D. Allen gets basically a 90, and the wide receivers Diggs and Beasley and Sanders, and there's a lot of mouths to feed. 120. That tells me there's the touchdowns right there. So I figured the running backs get 1, and the other 3 or 4 or more. Knox has been running crazy. Let's just see how good Knox is. But Tennessee actually plays tight ends tough, which is interesting. So I could see, however, that stat is misleading. If Tennessee is just run off their feet, the D is run off by Buffalo, they could just flip over, and Knox could get his as well. Definitely would play kicker and Buffalo D all day long. Tennessee gets a 0. Toughest defense. Henry, prove it. Are you the best? Because you're going against the best. 13 DAP. Tannehill gets a 0. I know Julio may be coming back. A.J. Brown was a little bit lackluster. Don't be surprised if this is Tennessee folds up early and goes home, and their tight ends have been sucky. I wouldn't use their kicker or D. This game, on paper, seems to give Tennessee an opportunity to score a few touchdowns, but it could really get crazy, and Tennessee could be held to 0. I mean, this could be such a crazy. I think the uncertainty for me, the range of outcomes for Tennessee is just, it's all comes down to Henry. What's he going to do for us? I mean, I'm playing Henry, but if Henry doesn't score a touchdown, I'm mad, but I'm probably not surprised as the smoke clears. I probably would not play him in daily fantasy sports. I would definitely let others play him and try to find some upside. Not seeing the upside here for Henry. Above average scoring games are next. So now we're leaving the scoring festivals here to those that are probably giving us 46, 7, maybe 48 points. Could go up higher, but if they're 44, 42, it's not surprising. The Rams versus the Giants. The reason this is not a high scoring game is the Rams could get 2, 3 touchdowns ahead and just sit on it and just run out the clock because the Giants could be spanked heavily. I'm not convinced Jones is ready to go. I mean, he just looked like somebody done beat him down there. So he could crack up this game. I, I, if I was his manager or agent, I would not want to play. I mean, if I'm Jones, I wouldn't play. But I don't know if he has a choice. I guess if you're paid millions of dollars, I guess you don't have a choice. The spread by Vegas is 11 points, 10 to 11. It could be worse. It could be 20 points. I would not want to bet this game. Over under is about 47, 48. The only way this goes above if the Giants are able to hang with the Rams, and it just doesn't. Nothing is in the Giants' favor other than the Rams have been, their defense hasn't been as strong. So that's the only reason why the Giants might actually beat that 13 score. Rams get a cakewalk defense at 96. The running backs score, the quarterbacks, Cooper Kupp, Woods, the tight end Higbee, definitely want to use the kicker, but I wouldn't use the D's. I would stay away from both defenses there. I could see running and passing scores left and right for the Rams. I could see them running it up hard and heavy, and then using Henderson and Michelle to run out the clock. If the Giants can hang, the reason is that they get a 75 DAP, and their running back, who's it, Booker? Booker has not been the guy, just another guy kind of saying. But he gets a 65, so he could surprise us. He might be a tournament running back to use in daily fantasy there. Jones gets a 59, so maybe that will help his concussion there. And his wide receivers, I think Shepard's coming back, maybe Slayton. Tony looked great last time. I think, for Dynasty, that if the window was ever open, it shut last week. I'm personally hoping for Ingram to surprise us, and I think he's the key. If Ingram can score and keep the Rams defense guessing, that could open up the wide receivers for scoring. So if they can wake their tight end up, that could lead to the Giants keeping up with the Rams, and then this could be a free-for-all. But there's a lot of uncertainty here. Not using kicker or the defense here, staying away. Cincinnati, Detroit. Detroit's another one of those that can just go wacky packages or could keep up with you, and they could even beat. Cincinnati's 28 is one of the lowest favorite scores predicted this week, so this could be a surprise game. Vegas says it's close to high scoring at 48, and the spread is about 4 points. I got it, maybe a touchdown. Cincinnati and Detroit, their defenses are both about the same, very easy. Not super easy, but 77-85 is above average easy. Cincinnati, look at Mixon. Gets 115 to run into. Mixon should score multiples here against this. And surprisingly, Burrow and the wide receivers are going to have to work for their biscuits, 46-35. And the tight end, might surprise us, Sample woke up last week, and so maybe both the tight ends get some action. Definitely you want to play the kicker and the Cincinnati D. And Detroit, same kind of scenario. Good for the running backs. But the Detroit gets a great DAP for the quarterbacks and the running backs. So pick your winner. I think Brown, Amon-Ra is the one to play here. Maybe even in daily fantasy here, might be able to collect. Hawkinson, 39. That just depresses me even more. I do have him in some teams. I'm playing him, but seeing this, everybody's going to really be going crazy if he doesn't score. Just remember what I'm telling you. This is not his game. So, come back and we can talk about tight ends. Tight ends are a really trick, not a treat to deal with in fantasy. They are a burden for all of us. So if you're having troubles this season, you're not alone. We are all, unless we've got Kelsey and Waller, we are all getting beat down week by week here. Play the kicker, okay, and the D for Detroit is a surprise defense. Probably cheap in daily fantasy, so that may be a good play as well. I think there's going to be some mistakes on both sides, Burrow and was it Goff? So I think it's going to be interesting game. I think it's going to be close, and this Detroit, maybe they get their first win, or do they have a win this season? I thought they were 0, but they may have a win. I don't know. They don't have many wins anyway, but they could surprise. Okay. Below average. This is now 44, 45. We're edging close to a defensive struggle. There's probably some really poor matchups here in some of the categories, and that's giving rise to this. Or the defenses or the offenses are just crappy, and this is one of those. Miami 26, Jacksonville 19. The spread is 4. I got it about 5. Over-unders 45. So one of the best of the below average predicted games. The reason is Miami, if Tua's back, he's been mistake prone and injury prone. Lawrence has not been gelling with like Chenault, like he got one target last week or something. It was crazy. So I don't know what's going on. If it wasn't for Robinson in the running game in Jacksonville, they would be completely out of this. But I think that's going to keep them in it. Jacksonville and Miami get flipped over, score as much as your offense can, defenses, a 93 and a 95. If either one of these teams had a superior offense, this would be probably a high-scoring game. But we have two kind of clunky offenses in a great game. So it could be a lot of mistakes. And I'm playing Miami and Jacksonville's defenses this week. Both. Running back, Jacksonville, Robinson gets 128. He could have 3 scores. It could be crazy for him. He's the play for me in daily fantasy. Quarterback, Lawrence actually gets a nice thing with Marvin Jones, I think for sure, gets his. Tight end, Arnold, I know he's the new toy in town, but 2023, Miami plays tight ends rough, so think I'm staying away this week. Play him if you got him, because that's your only choice. Not playing the kicker, so I got to, but the D is fine. Miami gets a 95. Gaskins, an 86. He could do it again. Quarterback, Tua could wake up. It's just his wide receivers get an average game. Gersecki, 95. Gersecki could be a cheap daily fantasy sports tight end play. He's one of them I'm looking at this week at a 95. Playing the kicker and the D there. So this game could have a lot of scoring, but it could be really mistake filled as well. So that's why you want to play the defenses. Here's another one. Chicago and Green Bay. The reason this is below average is Chicago does play Green Bay tough. And every year. The only reason that Chicago's could surprise Green Bay is they are playing at home. Green Bay's not as strong on their away games. Chicago gets an easy defense. They just don't have a great offense. They're down to their third round running back, but he gets a 70, so he could be viable this week with buys and injuries. So Herbert's, play him if you got him. I do got him in a lot of places, and we'll play him as my, RB2 flex kind of play. Quarterback's fine. The wide receivers, Robinson gets an average game. Unfortunately for him, that's been 5 catches for 30 yards. So, maybe Mooney, this is his week. Cole Kemet, still waiting for him, gets an 85. He's been involved, just not been putting it together. Maybe he puts it together. Maybe this is the shining week. Maybe playing Chicago D, rather play Green Bay's D against Chicago with an 85. So I would pick up Green Bay. Green Bay faces a tougher than average defense. Aaron Jones is going to have to fight through a 14. Rodgers gets a 35. The good news is his Adams gets a 75. So that's what's going to keep Green Bay and help them win is Adams. If Adams doesn't turn it on and Cobb or whoever's the next one doesn't do a little bit, it could be closer than we think. I think the game key, forget the tight end, the game key is Aaron Jones. If he can keep the Chicago D occupied, that should give Rodgers time to find Adams and score. So that's why it's below average, because it's not obvious that's going to happen, folks. But the defense is worth a play. Below average, Carolina 24, Minnesota 22. I got it as a coin flip. Vegas says 46. They both have tough defenses. Carolina gets a 53. Minnesota gets a 25. I would not play either one of the defenses. Carolina's been surprising, but I would look elsewhere this week. But their defense has played exceptional against tough situations. So if you've got them and you don't have another choice, I wouldn't worry too much. But I'm not looking to play them in daily fantasy. Carolina, Chuba Hubbard gets an average game at 54. Darnold gets a 39. He's going to have to work. Moore gets a 45. He should score. The tight end and the kicker is fine. I'm worried about Anderson this game. So I'm probably playing Moore and Hubbard. Minnesota. If Dalvin Cook could beat the tough Carolina run defense at 0, Minnesota could win. It is not apparent that Cook is 100% healthy and can do that. That's why this is a below average game. Vegas sees that and has concerns. Quarterback 51, but the wide receivers, Thielen and Jefferson, should do pretty good, but they got a 29. I think they're going to be held to 1 score each. The tight end, 40, I don't know. Wouldn't play the kicker unless I had to. Defense, I wouldn't play. Comes down to can Cook break the back of the Carolina D or not. That's the game key right there. Denver and the Raiders. The Raiders could be a train wreck and score 0. The Raiders could be fired up and crush Denver. I would not bet this game if I'm a gambler. 25-19. The spread is 3 though. Vegas says 44.5, below average. The reason they're not saying it's a low scoring is Denver does face a 70 DAP, and look at Gordon and Javonte Williams. They should feast at 92. Both of them should score and get lots of good points. The passing is going to be Noah Fant, so it's going to be the running backs and Noah Fant day right here. Sutton, you got to play him if you got him, but I'm just saying for daily fantasy, another tight end I would love to play is Fant and the running backs. I'd play the D and the kicker. Vegas gets a very tough Denver 26. Jacobs fights at a 20. Quarterback 27. The wide receivers get an average game. The tight end, Waller, he's going to have to earn his pay. 13. I wouldn't play the kicker, but I would play the Las Vegas D all day long. Look at that, 99. That's nice. So anyway, and this is probably like a lot of games. If the running back can really break through here, so if Jacobs can really keep Denver defense busy, then that's going to open it up for Waller and the wide receivers. If he can't, then Denver could crush them. That's why this is a below average, because Vegas is unsure about how this plays. Low scoring games, defensive struggle. You don't want to play these a lot unless there's just an extreme advantage in daily fantasy. And there might be. Pittsburgh against Seattle. Vegas says they're low scoring. I think because they don't think that Ben is right. If Ben was younger, he should. The numbers say he should feast against the 98. Najee Harris should run roughshod over the Seattle D at 100. Ben and his wide receivers and even the tight end, everybody should score. This should be fireworks here. I wouldn't play the D though. Kicker maybe. So, this game could be higher than we think. I think if I was betting, I might bet higher, so I would take the over points, because I think 100, it just looks too good, and he's playing at home. I'm confused by what Vegas is thinking. Seattle, I understand Geno Smith even. So we got a tough D, Geno Smith, Carson's out, Collins against the 16. Geno does have an opportunity with Metcalf and Lockett at 100 here. So there is a ray of hope that Seattle can keep up, but it looks like it's going to be passing. So there could be some garbage time here. The tight end I would avoid. Kicker's fine. I would not play the D. I think you're going to get garbage time points. And I guess Pittsburgh, if Ben is just not right, it's just hard to see Pittsburgh losing. I'm not seeing it. So maybe I'm just looking next week where, man, Seattle really kicked Pittsburgh's butt. The numbers don't say it. So this, I believe metrics. So I think it's going to be higher than they think. Indy and Houston, the reason they're thinking low scoring is that Houston could score 0. Houston could score 30 points. That's how uncertain this all is. Houston gets an 81 DAP. On paper, they should be able to score. Not the running back, so at 29, it's all the passing and even the tight end. Just there may be a surprise tight end play in here. But Cooks should do well. Some of the other ones that woke up should do well. David Mills should. Let's just say if he doesn't do well, then he's not who we think he is, right? Wouldn't play the kicker, probably wouldn't play the D. I'm having hope that Mills makes this a game because nobody wants to see a sad game. We want to see a happy game. So let's just root for Houston, even though they're playing away, and it's going to be just gunslinging passing. Indy with Wentz should just roll all over Houston at an 80. Taylor gets an average game, which for Taylor means he could score at least a touchdown. And Mo Alley Cox should run roughshod at a 99. Wentz to Cox twice. That's what I'm thinking here. Playing the kicker, probably playing the D as well. Looks very intriguing here how this stacks up for Indy. So that is the games there. And I did want to spend a little more time here. If you'll indulge me, I do include my PPR rankings with uncertainty levels. So I just wanted to show you some of the landscapes of my rankings this week. What we have here is the team and the average of my rankings, and I call it Fantasy Sports Professor Rankings. FSPR. Okay, so that's what that means. The team and my power rankings based on my Fantasy Sports Professor Rankings. And I broke it into 4 tiers this week. I think Dallas, the Rams, Buffalo, Tampa Bay, well, Tampa's already played, Arizona, and Kansas City should be the top dogs this week. So the extremes are what I think about. So there is the high power ratings, the concerns: Miami, Tennessee, Seattle, Jacksonville, Chicago, the Giants, and Houston. Some of those are obvious, maybe, some maybe not. But those are my low ranked teams for the week here. And I think I did a graph so you can look at what I think. So this is how my rankings see this. You're saying, well, what about these in here? My rankings are gonna say it's who knows what happens. I like the extremes. I feel more confident about the extremes. I'm pretty, bullish here, bearish there. Uncertainty. So I count the number of players that I've ranked that have high uncertainty, average uncertainty, and low uncertainty. So I love teams that have a lot of low uncertain players. That gets my attention. So here's just simple counts. Buffalo has 2 highly uncertainty players that I ranked. 1 average, and 10 low. So that's great. They're the lowest uncertainty team this week. Are highly ranked and low uncertainty. That means they should do what you think they do. Tampa's already played. Miami, Minnesota, Indianapolis. Philly was low uncertainty, but Tampa was better, so too bad. Carolina. The concern for my numbers, the Chargers are a concern, the Rams, New England, Seattle, the Rams, the Raiders, Houston, Detroit, and Cleveland get my attention. I'm concerned about the range of outcomes. Not really worried about these in here. The extremes are what drives me. And here's just showing the levels of so I'm not very concerned here. I'm getting very concerned here. So you could say instead of uncertainty, concerned. So if all were equal, if I'm deciding do I play somebody from Cleveland or Dallas, I'm going Dallas. Okay. I'm trying to avoid these teams, move to these teams. Okay. Here are my rankings and uncertainty for the week, my last slide. And here is the power rankings. So notice these are the top group here from Green Bay up to Dallas. Right in here. It's kind of above average. Green Bay's right at average. So I'm liking these, and I have concerns here. And just showing the level of concern and my rank. So lowly ranked and, some of my concern levels here as well. So just be aware of that. Cleveland is my most concerning team of the week, and Detroit, and the Rams, and Seattle, and Houston. Those are and the Chargers, and New England. Those are my big, 6 that I'm really concerned about this week. So use that as a general guide here. So thanks for listening. Hopefully we crush week 6. I want you to crush week 6. I want to crush week 6. Let's do it and move on. Okay, for Dr. Bush, that's me and my process. That's my whole thinking here, trying to educate you. Come back next week. Thanks for listening to me for 57 minutes and 53 seconds. Thanks. See ya.